Welcome to the F50 Woman Podcast, dedicated to sharing stories from a diverse community of women in order to provoke you into a passionate pursuit of life, build unshakable character, and achieve extraordinary things. Now, here is your host, Julia Jack.
Hey, F50 women. Thank you so much for joining today. I am with Shayna Rattler, and she is a prophetic minister, an author, a speaker who empowers others to experience a God shift that moves them from disruption into a greater destiny. She and her business have received multiple awards. She has published 4 books and has been featured in over 450 media outlets. Shayna also hosts a God Shift podcast and the God Shift TV show. I am so excited to have you here, Shayna. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you today?
I am doing well. I am really excited about this episode. And I told my husband I'm a little bit nervous. I had little butterflies because I'm so excited. Because it feels like really important stuff, stuff that I really want to understand and know. And, when you see something, you're like, wait, I want to have that thing. What is that thing? I can't wait to get there. Let me get there. Yeah, so I'm excited.
It's interesting that you say that, Julia, because I feel like maybe the last 3 podcasts of others that I've been interviewed on, they say the exact same thing, but they're usually like, girl, you have no idea what's going on in my life right now, my family's life. I need this interview for me. Yes. Like, I hope the audience is blessed, but I need to know exactly what you're going to say that I can benefit from. Yes. So however the Lord uses me, I'm game.
Yes. And I believe there's even more and more, especially in these days, that really, really need that, whether they know it or not. But when we come in contact with you, I know we realize that's what I need. So yeah, thank you for being here. So I just want to start helping the audience understand who you were. I like to know where this all started. So tell us a little bit about young Shayna, what she was like, what did you want to be, who you were, what you dreamt about.
Absolutely. So young Shayna is not a lot different than almost 45-year-old Shayna. She ran her mouth all the time. She just gets paid for it now. Okay. But I've always been willing to take risk. I've always been willing to, jump and figure out if I have a parachute later. I've always been willing to say, whatever is on my mind. And so that's kind of carried me a long way, both good and bad over the years. But I actually wanted to be a model. I never... Okay. I had an uncle that said that he wouldn't rest until I became an attorney. I had all these family members who had all of these great, visions for my life. And all I wanted to do was be a supermodel.
Okay.
I didn't care how smart they told me I was. I didn't care how much they were like, oh, you've been talking all your life. You're going to do such great things. And I'm like, I just want to model. I just want to be cute and I want to model. Like that's as deep as it went. But interestingly enough, my father will tell you that there was always an entrepreneurial side to me. Okay. I have a picture of myself that I was about 6 years old and I was having a yard sale. And in addition to the yard sale, I was always like trading money with my dad. Like, ooh, I got a good deal for you. I'll give you these 2 1s for 1 5, because I'm saving for this bicycle. And so, I believe that I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. Used to volunteer at a nursing home as a child, where my main concern was not necessarily yelling out the bingo numbers, which is what the activities director wanted me to be doing. But I would visit the room of this lady who was bedbound, and I would ask her, if you could do anything, what would it be? What would you do? And I would go and get a book and bring it back the next time and read that book for her. So when you look at my life, when you look at from what I did, in this nursing home as not even a teenager, when you look at the fact that I went on to be a therapist, went on to be a business coach, my purpose has always left the clue that I was put on this earth to help people's dreams become true. Sometime it was in their life, sometime it was in their business. And now where I look at where I'm at in ministry, it's where they are in determining how their faith can get them to their destiny.
Okay. And did you struggle with that whole desire to be a supermodel? Along this way, as you were led by your destiny, doing all the things that just came right out of you, did you struggle at all with that, or
No, because
At what point? Yeah.
I did it. I just didn't go on to do it like as an adult, but I was first runner up in Miss Teen USA of 1995.
Oh, yes.
Don't play no games. I was
All
second
right.
in Miss Teen St. Louis. As part of my contract in Miss Teen St. Louis, I actually did have a modeling contract. So I was able to, to live out my dream on a small scale as a younger adult. I just didn't go on to be the next Naomi Campbell. I did in my mind.
Right. Yeah. And that's where it matters. If you ask me, that's where it matters most.
Right.
You could be a supermodel, but if it's not in your mind, then you're just always chasing a dream.
Exactly.
So tell us, what did you learn from that modeling experience? From I imagine it taught you a lot of things that you even use today, whether it's speaking in front of people or being confident or even that mindset.
I've always known that talking came easy to me. But as a child, it was always viewed as a bad thing. Be still, be quiet. The others can't learn. It was always shut up. But what I learned in the Miss Teen Illinois contest is I actually ranked number 1 in the interview. And so I realized that I really had an ability to use my words to convey a message, but I wasn't even trying. Like in my mind, I was just like, this is stupid. I don't even know why this has to be part of the competition. And I was just answering the questions and hoping that they would hurry up and get over with it so I could go put on my evening gown. That's what I was excited about, and take the pictures. But when I won, when I won that category, and there was a Black judge who came up to me afterwards, and she said this to me, and she said, "You really should have won this whole competition. But this part of the country in the day and age that we're at right now, you would have never won because you're Black."
Wow.
But she said, "But that mouth of yours is a gift."
Okay. Wow.
And to be honest with you, Julia, I'm really like right now, I've never revisited that statement that she said to me to even see how it has gone on and how I now have the evidence that this mouth is a gift. But now that we're having this conversation, I remember her saying, "But that mouth is a gift."
Yeah.
And I came home and told my dad, I was like, "You can't ever tell me to be quiet again because this mouth is a gift."
That's right. I had confirmation. Thank you.
Yeah.
What I find amazing about what you just shared is it didn't play games on your mind and you focused on the positive portion of what she shared with you. Because some may focus on the "you'll never be" because, and you didn't. So why was that? Was that just who you were?
I think some of it is just kind of how I'm wired. I've never really cared what other people thought, what other people said. Now, again, it got me in a lot of trouble as a child. You don't get to just do what you want because you want to do it. But I also think that I had a lot of people in my corner always telling me that I could do whatever it was that I wanted to do. I've always had family members that were always encouraging me to be great. And they would highlight, things about my personality that they thought was, something that would be of favor. And so a little bit wiring in my DNA, but also a lot of encouragement. I was never told you'll never be anything. Like I don't have those stories. I was always being encouraged, even by my grandmother, who had like probably a second grade education, and she probably didn't know a whole lot about what the possibilities were. But she recognized that out of her 14 kids and out of her probably 50 something grandkids at that age, that she felt like I was the special one for whatever reason.
Okay. Well, that's good. Okay. Yeah. I think the cat is out of the bag now. Don't share this with your family.
Don't share this
one. So let's just jump to who you are now, because some of those other questions I have will be relevant to what you're going to share with us next. So please share with us what, I gave you a little bio, but share with us what you do now. Talk about the God shift and help us understand your passion and your purpose.
Absolutely. So I've been an entrepreneur since 2007. And in 2018, I experienced the anti-Midas touch, where everything I touched turned to dirt. Like literally everything that people were hiring me to do for years, and that I had built up a pretty good reputation of being able to perform and give you results. I couldn't perform. the things that I know that I do well, the things that I know that I probably talk about in my sleep, everything around me. It was just like, what is going on? Like my business is dried up, but I'm still doing all the things. Like I'm hiring all the right consultants. I'm doing all the things that my coaches have told me to do. Quite frankly, I'm doing all the things that have worked for me very well. The relationships that I was in didn't seem very, like fulfilling to me anymore. And I opened my book up by saying, what the hell is going on? I believe that that's 6 words that believers ask themselves at least one time in their lives. And that's what I was experiencing. I couldn't understand anything that was going on in my life, personally or professionally, but it was like I felt like I knew God was up to something. I had no idea what, but there was just like this inkling in my belly where I'm like, despite what I see, now I have language for it now, that I've gotten a little bit more, into my word to say, you have to rest on what you see with your spiritual eyes and sometimes ignore what you see with your natural eyes. I just didn't have the language for it back in 2018, but it's like, I don't quite understand what's going on. I don't know why everything is falling apart. I don't know why I've gone from making multiple 6 figures a year to putting my mortgage on a credit card June and July, but I just feel like God is up to something. Okay. And if you fast forward, that up to something was the fact that I was being called to ministry. And he knows his kids just like we know our kids. And had he have allowed me to speak in different countries, make the money, have the celebrities and the politicians as the clients, and they would have said anything about ministry, I would have been like, is he talking to you? Me neither. Because Lord knows I felt like I was the least qualified. Still to this day, I feel like I'm not the most qualified person to be doing anything. I'm like, how am I going to minister to anybody? I like brown liquor and 4-letter words, like minister, like what we doing, right? Yeah. And so,
you were. Can I just ask you a question in there? Did you go to church? Was it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got really, really serious about living a life for God in my 30s. But I wasn't thinking about a career path of helping other people get serious with theirs. But the Lord told me, he said, the gifts that I've given you, the talents, the skill sets, the abilities, everything that I've put in you that you've been using to build the marketplace, I don't want you to change a whole lot, but I need you to now take those skill sets and help me build the kingdom. Obviously, I had no idea back in 2018 what form that was going to take on. The vision for that came a little bit later. But you asked me, what is a God shift? So a God shift is any time a disruption in your life collides with God's purpose and moves you into a greater destiny. So we have to ask ourselves, why does God use disruption? Why does he use unexpected circumstances? And I honestly believe, Julia, that he uses those unexpected circumstances to get our attention. Why is that? Because most of us are either pursuing a path that's not planned for us, or we're putting priorities on the wrong thing. So whether that's physically, relationally, in your mindset, anything that you could be putting energy into. And he's so committed to the results in our lives that if we're going down a different path, and it doesn't be because we have to be going down a bad path. It could be you're on this path as this corporate executive, but that's not what I have for you. I have this thing over there for you. So he has to allow some level of shakeup in our lives to get our attention. The question is, are we going to see what he needs us to see? Are we going to learn what it is that he needs us to learn? And more importantly, for many of us, are we going to go where it is that he needs us next? So that was my first God shift moment.
Wow. So share some of these disruptions, because you're helping others with their disruptions.
Yeah.
Help us to understand what those disruptions might be, because maybe my business hasn't flatlined.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, maybe you're at a crossroads. Do you stay on the same path that you're on, or do you take a different direction? Perhaps you're overwhelmed, you're burned out. That thing that you used to do that it just felt like such a passion. Now it feels like a chore. The bottom line is something is just off. You don't know what it is. You don't know why it is, but you don't want to stay here. Now, the reverse of that, or the other side of that coin, is that disruption doesn't always have to be something that's negative. Sometimes you can have a person that has accomplished everything that it is that they've set out to do, but they just can't ignore what it is that they're feeling, that there's another level of success with their name on it. So anytime you find yourself asking what the hell is going on, you're probably smack dab in the middle of a God shift.
Okay. Could be good, or it could be bad. I like that you shared that, because
sometimes you're going to ask to be let go of trash. Sometimes you're going to be asked to let go of treasures.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now I noticed that there's 2 times you shared that you said, that's not a big deal, God, whatever, but they were your gifts. Like with the pageant, you were talking about the speaking part. It was like, yeah, that's easy. Can we move on? And then you talked about it again when, oh gosh, I can't remember the other example, but felt like, oh, even when God had called you, that he had a calling and your business dried up. It felt like both times you were saying, what? It's not like something you were expecting or looking for. And I've always wondered, is that when God calls you, the thing that God calls us to mostly is the thing that we say, what, God? Are you serious? It's not me. You're talking to me? Is that your experience with the individuals you work with and in your work?
Most people, especially when they're getting ready to embark on something new, we never think we're ready.
Okay.
Right. And we talk a lot about Ephesians 3:20, the fact that he will just do so far above what we can ask or imagine. But I always tell people back up a little bit and go to Ephesians 2:10, because it basically tells you, and I'm paraphrasing, that God actually created us for great works that he planned beforehand for us to do. And I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that he doesn't necessarily call those that are qualified. He qualifies those that he calls. Right. And so he knows where he's taking us and he knows what's in us and he's already put it in us. So if we look at what does Ephesians 2:10 mean for our lives, it means that whatever it is that he's asking you to do, even if you're uncertain about how it's going to unfold, even if you're uncertain about what you're going to do, we have to rest in the comfort of knowing that we're already ready, at least ready enough to start. Okay. And I see that that's what keeps people stuck is the how. Like the how is none of our business. I say all the time, like the only thing that God needs is our yes. If we will give him our yes, if we will be committed enough to say yes, the how will show up, whether that's the resources, whether that's the people, whether that's the strategy. But the problem is that we are not willing to take steps, even if they're laced with uncertainty. And so many of us will never actually realize the destiny that he has for us. Because since we can't see ahead of us, I stole this from somebody about a month ago. They reminded me that the scripture says that it'll be a light unto our path. It didn't say it was going to be a light into the distance. But many of us don't move because we can't see what's going on ahead of us. So what I would say to your listeners is take a step and he's going to light your path. And then when you take a step, he's going to continue to light your path. And guess what? When you take another step, he's going to continue to light your path. And before you know it, you're in the distance. So don't stay stuck now because you can't see what is out in the distance. Be willing to take a step and just know that your path is going to continue to be lit. The strategy will show up. The people will show up. The money will show up. Whatever you filled in the blank that you're thinking is going to like keep you stuck will show up. If we allow him to move, he'll be a GPS. Or if we move, he'll become our GPS is a better way to say that.
Yeah, that's a level of faith. It's a level of faith.
Yeah. What's the difference? I think people use faith and belief interchangeably. They're not the same thing. Belief is what you think. Faith is what you do. So you can't say that what you're believing God for. Oh, I'm believing God. I'm trusting God. I'm waiting on God. No, you ain't moved your feet.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not faith.
Yeah,
faith is in the moving.
You hear me pausing because I'm writing that down. Belief is what you think and faith is what you do.
It's what you do.
Yeah. And you put that so perfectly because you just have to take the step. God didn't tell you he was going to show you the end so you can walk and, I'm going down the path. You showed me where I'm going. This is comfortable. Yeah.
No, you never waltz into your destiny.
Yes. That hopefully gives all of you listeners courage. And it's definitely giving me courage just to take the step because I tell you, I've been dabbling. Maybe I should go that way, or maybe I should go that way. Maybe I should go left. No. I don't think I should do that. But just take the step. And I imagine, and maybe you can answer this question, if you're taking the wrong step, then what will God do then?
He'll course correct you, just like your GPS. If I get in my car and I come to your house and it tells me to go left, and I'm like, right looks better. Or if I'm just not listening and I turn right, it's going to reroute and it's going to tell me to turn around. It's going to whatever. Yeah. But the GPS can't work if we're not moving. So instead of us waiting on God, we have to learn to start moving with him. Yes. And trust that he's the best GPS that's out there. Again, like I said before, the reason why he allows unexpected circumstances and disruption to come is because he's committed to the results. So do you think when you start being obedient and doing what it is that he told you to do, like I always say, you really can't mess up. Yeah. Like you can't mess up. Almost everything is figure outable because he'll course correct you if you go the wrong way.
Yeah. So talk about fear. Because that will be the thing that really stops people. So talk about the fear.
Yeah. When I was doing corporate America training, I used to start every talk off by saying, like, I get it. In corporate America, you always have to have the right answers. You don't get not to have an answer, and you better not have the wrong answer. Right. And so I always say, don't let your butts get in the way. Not your butts that you're sitting on, but I've tried that, but this will never work. But, we don't have the budget. Like, whatever your butts are that you will, allow to get in the way, usually shows up as some form of fear. And I often say that the danger is that fear and faith have the exact same definition. And that's believing in something that hasn't yet happened. So since they're so closely related, it's very easy to feed the wrong one.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Some of the things that we call faith are really just fear, like prayer. I'm not saying we shouldn't pray, because the Bible tells us that we should pray. But what about the times that you're really just using prayer as a form of procrastination? What about the times that you're using confirmation as an idol? Because we really are full of fear and doubt, right? Like, oh, I'm going to pray about it. Well, how about you've already prayed about it, and now here's the solution, and now you have to then go pray about the solution? I say all the time, it's so disrespectful. We are so disrespectful to God, because we walk around with these t-shirts that say, I'm the daughter of the king, and all this other mess that we say. And it's like, are you really operating in faith if you always have to just keep praying about it when he's already given you the answer? But we're not going to willingly admit that we doubt him, but we will willingly admit that we doubt ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we have to be willing to take risks. We have to be willing to recognize that sometimes we need spiritual counsel. Sometimes we need practical counsel. But once you get that counsel, there's nothing else to pray about at that point. It's now time to take a step. That's where we leave room for God to make a miracle, and we have the opportunity to see how he responds. Yeah. But if we just gonna keep praying about everything over and over and over, and then the solution comes and now we have to pray about the solution also, like, that's just fear.
Yes. I was thinking about that very thing just the other day, that I keep asking God for the same thing over and over again. And he's probably like, hello, I already knew anyway. So why don't you just go over there and do something else? Stop asking me the same, like when your kids keep saying, Mom, can I have ice cream? Mom, can I have ice cream? I told you you'll have it later.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And for many of us, especially if you have professionals or entrepreneurs that are in your audience, most of us, there's much that we can do based on what he's already said, instead of us waiting on what he's going to say next. Because the reality is that if you have not done what it is that he told you last, he's not going to tell you anything else. Yeah. So some people will tell you, oh, God's not silent. Sometimes he is, because sometimes he's already said he's already said all he's going to say until you do something with what it is that he said.
Yes, yes. And I don't know if anyone in the audience, and Shayna, I don't know if you've heard the people you work with, or even in professional industry, there's times when it just goes dead silence. And you're like, wait a minute, what do I do now? One of those, what's happening? Did I do something wrong? Yeah.
Did I do what he said last?
Yeah. Yeah. That is serious food. So talk about your coaches. Because I'm really excited to know how you got to where you are and how you got to be you, and who helped to prop you up. I don't know if prop is the right word, or helped you, pushed you forward. You seem like a person who just went forward, and there was just no backing up or delay.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, that's my personality, to make it, get an idea, get information, make a decision, take action on the decision. And that's usually a very short period of time.
That's awesome.
Between the idea and the execution. That's how I've always operated. Yeah. But I've also been wise enough to recognize that I don't have to figure it out on my own. I used to say, unless your idea is so 2020, somebody's done it before. But since we're kind of a little bit on the other side of that, I have to come up with something new to say.
Right.
But I've always recognized the value of mentorship. I've always recognized the value of having a coach. I can let their losses become my lessons. I don't have to make the same mistakes. I can just spend the money, to get the best person that I can get and allow them just to tell me what to do so I can do it right the first time and really cut down on my learning curve. Yeah. So every step of the way, whether it's something that I was doing business wise, whether it's something that I was doing like to learn how to trade in the markets, like I've never just thought it made a whole lot of sense to just sit around and try to figure it out, because that's always going to take me a lot longer. It's always going to increase the chances that I'm doing something wrong. And oftentimes, if not always, it's going to cost you a lot more money to make the mistakes and fix the mistakes, and then hire somebody to tell you how to fix the mistakes. So I always say, you've got two doors. You can either take what you know and figure it out on your own, or you can just spend the money to, whatever. And there's coaches and mentors on all levels, obviously, for somebody just to give you the blueprint. I was telling someone the other day, I don't know why we do this as business owners, but we would never do this with our house. We would never try to build the house and then go back and ask the engineer for the blueprint. But why do we do that? So why not just go have somebody give you the blueprint and then build the doggone business the right way, instead of fumbling and bumbling and, wasting time and money. And now you're like, well, I guess entrepreneurship ain't for me. No, it is for you. You just didn't do it right. When you had somebody tell you what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the house just falls down and
just
kills the whole dream. Yeah. Yeah. How did you go about finding coaches? Was there a process, or I'm always curious?
I'm trying to remember how I found out about my very first coaches.
Yeah.
One of the very first business coaches that I had, I was introduced to him by a lady that I knew in Memphis. And to be honest with you, I don't even remember now how I met her, because I've slept a few times since then. But so I was introduced to my very first coach just as a form of connection. And then after that, I started just swimming in the ponds of other people who were doing what it is that I was learning to do. And so you just start to recognize who the gurus in the space are. When you start listening to podcasts, when you start, going to websites, when you start getting on different people's newsletters or attending masterminds, you start to recognize who the gurus in the space are or who other people are using. So I'm pretty sure that everyone since then has probably come just from being in the environment, right? Yeah. Like you have to be in the environment in which you want to grow.
Okay. Very good advice.
And then the resources show up, right? Like now it's not a matter of like, I wonder where I could find a coach. I've already strategically placed myself in the environments that I should be in. And then everything I need just happens to kind of be around you.
Yeah. You're sort of in that forest and now you can pick from the trees. Yeah. That's fantastic advice. Because we don't know, at least we sort of fish around and ask who you're using, but the other person may be doing something different than you, and you may need a different kind of coach.
Yeah.
Great advice. So you said you had another shift. It sounded like you said that was your first God shift. Could you want to share the other one?
My second God shift was my own fault, Julia.
Okay.
So rewind a little bit to 2019. I'm on a spiritual retreat in Bali, Indonesia, and the Lord gives me a crystal clear vision of what my ministry is going to consist of.
Really? I love that.
Huh?
I love that. When you get that crystal clear vision from God.
When I tell you, Julia, it was so crystal clear that I could see it like a movie screen. Like I could literally so right now I'm watching this Zoom in gallery mode. So your picture is on the left and mine is on the right. Mm-hmm. I could literally see a 3-part split screen of exactly what the vision was.
Wow.
He told me I would preach and teach in stadiums. I would have a television show, and I would work with celebrities and politicians. And I didn't have any idea how that was going to happen or how that was going to come about. And I was wise enough to recognize that although that he can make it happen like that, it probably wasn't going to be by the time I touched back in Dallas, Texas, that the offers were there, the television crew was at the house. Like I just figured it probably wasn't going to happen like that, right? And so then I was like, well, what does the word say? Because by now I'm deep in it now. Like I'm gonna go to the word for everything now. Like I'm good at this thing, right? So like, what does the word say? Ooh, the word says that he'll bless what you put your hands to. So that means I have to be in some form of action until these opportunities show up, right? So I made the grave mistake that I hope that you never make, and I hope that your audience never makes. And this was the God shift that didn't have to happen, was I took the new vision and I filtered it through old perspective. What does that mean? we've been talking about all this coaching, right? Like I not only had a lot of coaches, but I had been coaching other people since 2007. So
Yes.
anytime you've been doing anything a certain amount of time, anytime you've been in an industry a certain amount of time, you can't help but to filter everything through that lens, right? So you could tell me, and I use this example all the time, my husband and I are going to start selling the most organic body care line that you've ever imagined. I'm like, and girl, y'all could create a coaching business teaching people how to use it and charge $3,500. Like that's just the world that I had been in so long.
Yeah.
So the mistake is the Lord said stadiums, television show, celebrities and politicians. And I created a coaching business out of it. He didn't say nothing about coaching. And so when I look at the rest of 2019 and I look at 2020, even though what I created was good, yes, it helped some people, but I always just felt like it didn't fit. I always felt like it was too small. Like these pants I got on, they too small, right? Like what are we doing? And it was like, I knew that the anointing on my life was so much larger than what I created. But I was just trying to be in action because I didn't want to be one of those people who was like, well, I don't know how those things are going to happen. So I'm just going to sit here. So let me do some things. But here's the problem. I didn't even give him a version of the vision to bless. I didn't say like, let me create my own, television show and put it on YouTube and see if somebody finds it. I didn't say like, let me start trying to find out if there's a speakers bureau that can get me in these stadia. I didn't do any of that. I created a coaching business.
Yeah.
And so I say that my first God shift was everything dried up to get my attention that I was being called to ministry. My second God shift actually delayed me really getting into the flow of the destiny that he was taking me to because I filtered that new vision through old perspective. So don't y'all do that.
Okay. But isn't that a form of the going off in the wrong direction and God bringing you back on? That's sort of an example of what you were sharing earlier when I asked,
Absolutely.
How do you know when you're going the wrong direction and what would
So
God
I
do?
found myself December 2020 asking myself yet again, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Because I've now gone back and done all the things that you do to create the things, to do the things, to have the things. And it's like, I'm not getting traction. So I did like any good business owner does at the end of the year. I'm like, well, what needs to shift? Is it the messaging? Is it the audience? Is it the marketing? Like what needs to shift? And I got on a Zoom like this with two of my business besties. And I was telling them the same thing that I'm telling you. And I was like, for the last 3 days, everything I've created, I balled it up and thrown it away. I literally had yellow legal pad paper balled up all over my house because everything that I was writing, I still didn't love it. And what we recognized about an hour into what should have been like 20 minutes was the fact that I was like, I didn't have the language for it then that I have now, but I was looking for something that would have been more like a movement. I wasn't looking for a tagline. I wasn't looking for a program. I was looking for something that had the ability to have more girth to it so I could have massive impact.
Yeah.
And I recognized that I had always been saying, if you're going to get on the other side of burnout or disruption or whatever you're experiencing, a God shift is required.
Okay.
And Doreen looked at me and was like, that's it, a God shift. And so I filed for the trademark the very next day, started producing the television show. I wrote the book. I was looking for what is the quickest way to mobilize this message? What is the quickest way to mobilize this movement? So a God shift was born on December 30th, 2020.
Okay. And
we
tell
were
us
off the races by January 3rd. I was like, I got a book, not in me, but out of me. Like, let's go. What we doing?
what? Really? Was that your first book you ever wrote? Okay.
It was number 4.
Okay.
I wrote book number 3 in 14 hours.
What?
I wrote book number 2 in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then book one, I had a coach that now I just tell other people how to do it quick. I can get it done. So this last book I did in about 2 days, and then I gave it a break and then came back because I didn't feel like it had enough in it. I felt like something was missing and I came back. But again, words have always come easy to me.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Yeah.
I knew that was a quick way to get this message mobilized because I plot out a few things on Post-it notes, which of these Post-it notes kind of go together. And then I just sit down at my computer and just knock out chapters until it's done.
Wow.
And so communicating, whether written or verbal, has just always been a gift of mine. So that's why I was like, okay, we're going to get this trademark because can't nobody steal it. Because remember, around this time, everybody was talking about shifting. Everybody was talking about shifting and pivoting. So I'm like, it's only a matter of time before somebody's going to try to put God with that shift. And I need to make sure my stuff is protected.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking back on your younger self, it could be just at the beginning of this movement or even younger. What would you want to tell her What's the one piece of advice you would want to tell
I
her?
would tell her, you're not too much. Because all my life, and even to this day, everybody always tells me I'm always too much of something. You're too this, you're too that, you talk too much, you're overdressed, like I'm always too much for somebody or something. And so I would have told younger me to adopt early on that you're not too much, in any group of people or person that thinks you're too much, that's not your person or your group of people.
Yeah. And would you have wanted other people not to tell you that? Or do you feel that built a muscle in you that now makes you stronger?
Let's go back to I didn't care.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I never cared what people thought or said to the point that it, made me shrink or, made me think different of myself. I just let them say whatever it is that they're going to say. But at the time, obviously you can't look forward. You can only look at where you are and look back. And as a young child, I didn't have too much to look back on. But when I look at where I am now, all of the categories that somebody has always told me that I was too much in have worked greatly in my favor. And not just necessarily from stuff, not necessarily just from money, but even being able to be an example for somebody else or being able to give support and guidance to somebody else. When I think about my previous business, when I was teaching business owners how to land corporate contracts, I used to have to tell them, like, listen, you can't go in there fitting into the mold, getting into that imposter syndrome, wearing these suits and, they don't, if they could get more, if they wanted more of what they already had, they wouldn't have to go outside. So I've been able to say to people like, listen, it doesn't matter if I'm preaching. It doesn't matter if I'm doing a corporate training. I'm going to be fly. Like, I'm going to have on my big necklace. I'm going to have on my high heels. And at the end of the day, even if that's not what they expect to see in the room, they quickly forget about that or begin to appreciate it and go, wow, look how free she is just to be who she is.
Yes. Yeah. Important one. Yes. Being authentic. I know we use that word a lot, but
I was just getting ready to say the buzzword around that now is being authentic and being unapologetic about who you are authentically. Now, throw that out the window if you know you're a butthole. Throw that out the window if you know you're just rude to people, right? Like, you don't just get to be like, well, I'm being authentic because this is who I am. No, you don't get to hurt people and damage people and just be rude in the process. Right. But if you know that what you're doing is not hurting yourself, it's not hurting anyone else, you're not doing it to be seen, you're not doing it for, ill intentions and an agenda, like, be all it is that God made you to be as loud as you want to be as bold as you want to be as fly as you want to be. I used to say hashtag save Dan Fly. I would post pictures of different things I was doing places, and I would say hashtag save Dan Fly. Like, Sarah Jakes Roberts set me free that I could preach and be fly.
Yeah.
Not that I was considering doing anything else, but I wondered, like, what are people going to, how are people going to look at this or whatever? And then I would see her up there with her J Bolden styled self, and I'd be like, shh, let's go.
Yes, I am who I am.
Where's my heels? And let's go. Thus said the Lord.
Yes. Because there's a lot of women, I speak specifically to women who are out there who are wanting to be free.
And they're shrinking to fit, and it's killing them. A part of them is dying every single day that they shrink to fit.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about the movement. Tell us how it works. Tell us how to engage. Tell us what you do, and just give us some more of the juice.
Absolutely. So pretty much everything happens. I would say 95% of it happens outside of the four walls of the church. So you mentioned in the bio, I've got a book, I've got a podcast, I've got a radio show that just ended. Hallelujah. I have a podcast, have the television show. On Instagram, if you're on Instagram, you can follow us at A God Shift. That's where I do a lot of lives, where I do teaching and, give revelation and, post little tips and tricks and strategies and stuff like that. Okay. You can pretty much find everything about the God Shift movement at agodshift.com. And I have a free gift for your audience because we haven't talked a whole lot about, and we still can if you have time. But
yes, we do have time.
Mm-hmm. We haven't talked a whole lot about how you shift. Or what are some of the things some of the areas that you need to pay attention to in your life. But I wrote a free guide called When God Says Shift, and they can get that at godsaysshift.com, and it'll actually cover the 4 shifts that are going to be required if we want to get out of disruption and into destiny. That's
okay.
At godsaysshift.com.
Okay. Do you want to share some more about that, or do you want us just to go and check it out? And
let's just go. They can grab that, and you and I, and go. We'll go and flow.
Okay, good, good. I have already, audience, gone to the website and signed up for mine. So please go and sign up for yours. It will benefit you. You will not lose.
Thank you.
So give us a little information tips from your playbook.
Yeah.
What is one book that you would advise all women to read?
One book?
Yeah. Do you have, if there is one?
Mine.
Of course, you've got plenty. And that's a book. Yes, that's a book. Which one should we pick? Because you have all of the above. Yeah.
Yeah. Read mine. Go get mine. No, just
yes.
I mean, get if you want to, but that's not the one book. So the one book that I would tell people to read, and it's been very, very instrumental in my life. And I was starting to think that it was just my own island, but then I started to, really get some revelation. I can't remember the author. I'm going to have to learn to commit the author to memory. But the book is called When God Says Wait. Okay. Because what I know is that there is almost always a gap between promise and provision. And over the last 18 to 24 up to today, prayer is, Lord, help me wait well. Because he's not going to do anything that he wants to do until he's good and ready to do it. And, we could make the grave mistake of like getting in his way and trying to help him out and things of that nature. But we have to learn, what do we do when he says no? What do we do when he says not yet? What do we do in the gap, right? So we have promise, we have provision, but in the middle is process. And so when God says wait, talks about all of these different experiences that different women are having when they have to wait, whether they're having to wait on a spouse, whether they're having to wait on a child, whether they're having to wait on someone to be delivered or saved. They give you all these scenarios and some tips of how you can wait well. And so I recommend that people read When God Says Wait.
Okay. Yes, I've heard of the book, but I have not read it yet.
Yeah.
God Says Wait.
Yeah.
What do you do every day to be so amazing? What is one thing that you do? Okay, Shayna, I want to be like you. Tell us one thing you do every day to keep your motor going. I'm just throwing it out there and I'm going to let you answer.
So here's what's interesting. I'm looking at my friend who's sitting right next to me because we just had this conversation this morning. Like, I don't walk around thinking about myself as being great. I don't walk around, it's not that I don't recognize that I'm gifted. Like, if you ask me what are the areas that I'm gifted at, it wouldn't take me but a second to tell you what I know, the areas that I'm the most gifted as. But I don't necessarily know that at a conscious level that I'm thinking about what I'm doing today is to be great. Right. I think I'm just thinking about, let me see, how do I want to answer that? Mm-hmm. I know that to be great at anything, again, this is an interesting question because I really don't even know how to answer this, but if I'm going to give it thought, I know that to be great at anything, you can never shift without new information. Okay. So every day I'm thinking about what information do I need in order to accomplish what it is that I'm, now looking to accomplish or planning to accomplish. And then I also know that you have to practice and sharpen. So I guess every day I'm thinking about, do I have the information that I need? And am I going from information to transformation? Yeah. Maybe part of that is what's made me great, but I don't know. I don't think that I think in those terms. I've always been the type of person like, well, what do you want to do? And then like, how do you do it? And then do it. Yeah. But to frame it around like, oh, like, how do you just be great? Like, I don't know. I guess that's what I do. I don't know.
That is actually
I hope that's good. I don't know.
That's a beautiful answer because we'll see you from the outside. We'll really want to have that God shift. We would really want God to give us a vision. Then we see you and then we think we have to perform that thing that you look like you're performing, but you're not performing. You are coming from the inside out and doing, learning, growing, giving.
Now that you say that, I can tell you what you can do to be great like me.
Okay.
You can focus on becoming more than you focus on doing.
Yes.
Right. So when I was being called to ministry, there was a lot that I knew that I didn't know. And specifically, I had no idea what I was going to do. Right. Mm-hmm. I never really felt like I was going to be like, oh, let me go find a church to pastor. That just didn't fit or feel like what I was sensing. But I do know that there's no mistake that we're called human beings and not human doings. And I think oftentimes we focus too much on what should we do when we ask the Lord, Lord, what should I do? When what we really should be saying is, who do I need to become? Because the Lord is never going to give us anything that we don't have the shoulders to carry. And in my book, I think I say that the definition of become is amplifying your strengths and shedding your weaknesses. So most of the time we know what characteristics we need to adopt. And most of the time, we're also really aware of the characteristics that we need to let go of, or maybe the people that we need to let go of. But who do we need to become? So how do you be great? Number one, you focus on who you need to become. Number two, you need to learn how to exercise your kingdom authority. Like, do you not know that the only reason that Jesus was able to die, not going to get real deep on y'all, but the only reason that Jesus Christ was able to die was because the authority that he had was passed on to us. That's why the word tells us that we can lay hands on the sick and they shall be healed. That's why it tells us that we can step on scorpions and we won't be hurt. That's why it tells us that we can tell the mountain to be cast into the sea and it has to move. That's why, I mean, like I just could give example, is that as a child of Christ, that we actually have an authority that we can use. So we have to recognize that we have that authority. We have to use our words as weapons and actually open our mouths and recognize that our words and our mouths can answer doors that our talents never can. So if you want to be great, if you will focus on who you need to become and you will learn how to exercise your kingdom authority, I don't think you can't be great.
Yeah.
In anything, even if it feels unsurmountable.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. Becoming and your kingdom authority and exercising your kingdom authority, because we believe in such a big and mighty and incredible God. And then we say, yeah, but I can't.
It's in us.
Yeah.
You know, he gave us the authority to do the same things that he did. That's why he was able to leave, because he passed it on to the billions of us that will be left behind. Which is amazing. Yeah. Like, I want your audience to literally say out loud right now, I have the authority to make it happen. And we're not talking about this new age wonky woo-woo stuff where you completely move God from it and all you have to do is focus on it and see it and chant it. We're not talking about that. But we're talking about kingdom authority. I want you to say out loud, I have the authority to make it happen.
To make it happen.
Open your mouth.
I have the authority to make it happen.
Yeah. Say what you see until you see what you say. You have the authority to make it happen.
Yeah.
That's how you be great. Go be great.
Yes. So how does it feel to be God's voice?
It's an honor. It's an honor that he would take somebody like me. You know what I mean? Like I get to, and as an ordained prophet, like I don't just have the honor of being able to share God's word from a place of ministry, but now actually being ordained and walking in the office of the prophet, like I get to speak on his behalf, and not just like repeating what the scripture says, but I actually get to speak on his behalf. Like, it's very humbling. And it's an absolute honor that I will never take for granted. Yeah.
Has anyone ever challenged your position?
Not yet.
As God's voice. Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. And I don't know, there may be some in the audience who are saying, yeah, I'm being called, and they're thinking, but I don't want to hear people chastising me, or I don't know. You know, sometimes when you tell people the truth, they just don't want to hear it. And
that's going to happen in your everyday life anyway. So do what God told you to do.
It sure does. Yes.
They're going to find a way to talk about you one way or the other.
One way or the other. Very good point. Yeah. No matter what you do. Yeah. Even when you agree, they'll find a way to talk about you somehow.
Right.
Yes. And gift versus ego. Can you talk about, you did talk about it a little bit, but how do you stop your ego from activating? And it sounds to me like that's just who you are, but I don't know. I think for me, one could rear its ugly head.
Yeah. And it's a very thin line.
Yeah.
It's a very thin line. And especially when you're good at what you do. Right. So for me, how you separate gift and ego is, who do you give the credit for? Who do you give the credit to?
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it can't be like, Ooh, I preach that thing. Like, man, I'm
Yes.
can't tell me.
I'm good. Yeah.
Boom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference, because there's nothing wrong with knowing that you did well. There's nothing wrong with recognizing that you have a great gift. There's nothing wrong with saying, not only does my gift make room for me, but it also pays me well. Like, there's nothing wrong with any of those things. But if you give the credit to yourself and not to the one that gave it to you, I think that's when your ego comes in, and that's when you're really focusing on you, and when you run the greatest risk of it being snatched away.
Yeah. And you do not want that. I imagine that's a big void of silence that you don't want.
Yeah.
And then you'll start talking nonsense and everybody.
Right. And you'll be broke.
Yeah. And you'll be broke. Yeah. Consequences. Yes. Right. So 2 more questions. One, please, you didn't share about your website, but tell the audience how they can get in touch with you after this podcast is over.
Absolutely. So you can find any way to contact us at the website. That's the hub for everything. That's the hub where you find all of our platforms. That's how you can find our email address. But if you want to find us on social media, it's best to go to Instagram, because although I have a presence on Facebook, I don't go live on Facebook. I'm not, you might find some static posts and quotes there. But the place to really engage from a social media standpoint is on Instagram at A God Shift. And the website is A God Shift, and anything we ever do, it will be mentioned there. And even if you're like, what was that URL for the free gift? If you go to the website, it's not real big on there. I need to tell my web developer to kind of switch that up. But at the bottom of several of the pages, it'll say like, hey, if you want announcements and updates and, do this, and you'll get our free guide when you do that. So if you can't remember anything else, you can always go to agodshift.com, and anything we're ever doing, there'll be direction to it from there.
We'll be there. Good. And it will be in the show notes, so you can click on the link and follow it there if you need to. Yeah. My last question. So you're doing your very last TV show because God told you this is going to be the last TV show, because you've done such good work. Well done, good and faithful servant. And now I'm calling you home. What is the last message that you would like to leave the world?
The last message I would like to leave the world. Like, didn't we just talk about this yesterday? You were so in it.
Wow.
My studio audience is here. So the last message that I would leave the world, every day that you don't access the wisdom and information that is needed is a day delayed to answering the amazing life that's calling. Because God needs the best version of you on the right path right now. Don't sit on the sidelines, get in the game.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, Shayna, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to the F50 Woman podcast. Join the F50 Woman movement and this diverse group of voices to help change the world one woman at a time. Why should you join at your age? Because we're not done yet.